You're listening to Psychology's Outer Limits with your host, Professor of Psychology, Erick R. Williams.
Good afternoon, and all the times of day and night in between. Welcome to Psychology's Outer Limits. I am your host, Professor Erick Williams, and we are broadcasting via the InceptionRadioNetwork.com, the best online network that you can get. We encourage and at times beg for your participation. So here are some doorways to the show. My personal favorite is the chat room. If you go to InceptionRadioNetwork.com, it's really easy to see on the main menu. You'll just see chat. You can just jump right in. And I have the chat room up right now. I see Analog and MJ and Adult Child of Alien and James T. and let's see, maybe some other people. So participate that way. You can call the show whenever you want. It's at 888-919-2355. And of course, we have our iOS and our Android apps for smartphones. The Facebook page, Psychology's Outer Limits. Twitter, you can Twitter at Erick Psychology, which is ERICK, or at I_R_N, which is for Inception Radio Network. Or you can email busybrainradio at gmail.com. So tonight's show will be split a bit in half. We have some guests after the psychology part of the program. We're going to bring on Mark Schwartz and Webb from truthfunders.com. And they're on the same network. They're on at 9 p.m. on Wednesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern. And we'll probably bring them in at the first break, which is around 7:30 or so, about a half hour into the show. All righty? So if you're ready, I'm ready, and let's jump into it. I hope everybody's having a good weekend. It's hot here. It got up to, 95 or 96 here in Maryland. And I don't know, maybe you guys in the chat room can say how warm it's gotten where you are. But boy, it sure has been a warm weekend. So, as usual, I want to start with news, interesting things from the world of psychology. And if we have time, and maybe we'll spread this across several shows, I'd like to talk about interpersonal attraction, romantic attraction, and friendships, but mostly romantic attraction. Because a lot of my counseling, when I was still doing counseling, was, it almost always had to do with relationships. Oh, and by the way, you can also subscribe to YouTube to listen to archives. So you can find the archives for any show on IRN, or you can go to YouTube. Thanks for that, MJ. Now I lost my train of thought, but I don't know, I'm older than dirt. My train doesn't stay on the track so well anymore. Anyway, let's look at some of the cool news. This one really jumped out to me because one of the things that we have to understand about science is that sometimes when two things seem to happen at the same time, we say, oh, this causes this, but maybe they didn't. When all we know is that when A goes up, B goes up, we call those correlations. It just means there's a relationship. There used to be this really weird relationship back in the 70s. There was a correlation between ice cream sales in New York and what amounted to fertility in India. Now, so what we could say is that when the variable ice cream sales in New York went up, people in India had more kids. Well, obviously, buying ice cream in New York isn't causing fertility. In India, you can't tell me if you went and bought yourself an ice cream sandwich that somebody in India got horny. There was probably another variable that better accounted for it, like weather patterns. Maybe people bought more ice cream when it was hot, and then the hot weather did something in India. I don't know. So when all you know is that two things move together, that's called a correlation. But if you use the scientific method, well, that's different. in the scientific method, what we do is we get rid of all those other possible things that could account for something. So all that's left are A and B. So we can say, well, when A goes up, B goes up, and that's because A causes B to go up. And you know when we're teaching Psych 101, we really beat this into the student's head, because you see this crap on TV and the radio and the internet all the time. You know, A and B are related, therefore A causes B, and no, it's not true. You know, find out why they think that. So anyway, this first story here, it's about linking eye color to the chance of alcoholism. Now, is that wild or what? So first they show a blue eye, a green eye, a hazel kind of eye, and a brown eye. Okay. And they were looking at that the link explained by similar set of genes coding for both eye color and a tendency towards alcoholism. Well, that might actually be a little bit stronger than a mere correlation, if they can say, look, we have this gene that causes an eye color, and the same gene seems to, you know, lend towards a tendency towards alcoholism. So people with, well, we got blue eyes, hazel eyes, brown eyes, and green eyes. And green is really a kind of a blue. But does anybody in the chat room want to guess which of those four eye colors have a higher chance of becoming an alcoholic? Is it green? Is it blue? Is it brown? Is it hazel? Any guesses? Or does anybody want to call in? I'm waiting. Come on, folks. I see all of you in the chat room. You can't all be all watching TV or doing something. Okay, MJ says brown. Any other guesses? Take your time. It's just live radio. I stole that line from somebody else. Okay. Anyway, the color is blue. Raise your hand if you got blue eyes and put that drink down. It's only going to lead to trouble. So, in fact, light-colored eyes in general, rather, you know, just any, even if they're green, gray, or brown, if they're light, it's more strongly related to alcoholism. So, MJ, do you have dark green or light green? That would be important. Blue, see, blue isn't really a color. When you sort of don't really have any pigment, when light enters your eye, what happens is that when you don't have pigment, all the colors are absorbed and blue is reflected. So really, blue means no color. Brown is color. Green is a kind of brown. Hazel is a mix. Green's complicated. I've got a 20 or 30 page book on my shelf that does nothing but explain how green is even possible. And you know, green comes from Ireland, and for the longest time you had people with red hair and green eyes. But what's happening because of global travel and all the intermarrying is that we're losing people with pure green eyes, and green is recessive. So we will soon get to the point that no one will have green eyes because it's a recessive trait. It'll get washed out of the green pool. So poor MJ, he's got medium green eyes, so I don't know, I guess you can finish that drink. And he's a quarter, so no more after that one. All righty. So anyway, isn't that interesting? It says, in comparison, people with dark brown eyes have a lower chance of becoming alcoholics. Now, I have dark brown eyes, and I don't like alcohol at all, so that is interesting. But that's one data point, you know, like that means anything. All right, let's move on to our next little bit of excitement. This one really interested me because I tell you, when I saw people for depression, I often thought, I think you're more anxious than anything, and your anxiety disorder wears you down and you become depressed. But I had a very difficult time trying to get people to doctors to prescribe Valium and Xanax and all that because that can be addictive and they don't want to give it to their patients, so they give them antidepressants. But this article is called The New Compounds That Could Treat Depression in 24 Hours. Well, the reason it could treat depression in 24 hours is that the benzodiazepines like Xanax and Valium and Klonopin and Ativan and all those, they work really fast, 20 or 30 minutes, and they certainly improve your mood. Current antidepressants take 3 to 8 weeks to work, and they only work for half the people. So, you could get 8 weeks into this and it doesn't work. So you try another antidepressant, and my gosh, you could be 3 or 4 months into treatment before you find one that works. And of course, most of the time, depression resolves in 6 months on its own anyway. So it could be that by the time you find a medicine that works, you're kind of better anyway. But anyway, the reason this interests me is that the drugs that they're working on work with GABA. And GABA is your brain's own version of, I'm being a little bit loose here, but the GABA is kind of like your brain's way of making Valium or Xanax. It's kind of a brake pedal for the brain. So these drugs like Xanax and Valium and all that, they are GABAergic, they are GABA agonists. They make GABA work harder. And these new drugs are GABA. And the antidepressants work with serotonin. So we have the antidepressants, which can take a month or more to work. And then we've got GABA drugs, which tend to work on an empty stomach. If you're on an empty stomach, let's say you hadn't eaten, and you took, let's say, a 5 milligram Valium, and you chewed it up and let it set under your tongue for a minute or so, it'll probably start working in 10 minutes. I mean, these are fast-acting drugs. So I find this very exciting because I've worked with a lot of people with depression, and it is an awful disorder. And it is the collateral damage that it does, that does the most damage. People can't get out of bed. They lose their relationships. They lose their jobs. They lose their homes. A lot of what we do in therapy is just try to prevent the collateral damage and hope that the medicine kicks in soon. Anyway, this is a very exciting development. And if we combine this with the research that's being done right now, where you essentially put your head up against what looks like an MRI, and it induces an electromagnetic current or wave at the very precise point in the brain that you want it, that people get relief from depression pretty rapidly. But that's still in early stages. But I try to keep up with that. And I have a student that traveled to California, and he was using it for OCD. And he was out there for 2 weeks. He had severe OCD. And he had 12 sessions of this. I mean, these machines cost they're like $1 million or more. But it helped. He felt about 75% better. Analog Hole asks, how possible is it, or maybe how is it possible that medications such as Xanax and Ativan can burn out the the receptor sites, causing negative long-term effects? Receptor sites are designed for a certain amount of interaction. So if you pound them, you could damage them. That's not the usual outcome. I mean, my mother had panic disorder with agoraphobia. She took low doses of 5 milligrams a day of Valium for probably 20 or more years without any problems at all. But if you were taking really high doses, I could see how the receptor sites could be damaged. But I can't prove that. That's just my thought. Excellent question, though. By the way, if you call into the show today, I have for you it's one of those little things you can plug a phone or a tablet in to recharge it. I think it's 7,800 milliamps. It's worth about $40. It would charge most phones 3 or 4 times, maybe more, and it would charge a tablet at least once. So all you got to do is call into the show for any reason. You can call into the show and tell me I suck, and I will still mail this off to you. So that's our prize today. And it's made by Sunbeam. I thought Sunbeam made mixers. Oh, well. Anyway, let me give you the phone number again here, just so we can you can call in and win your prize. It's 888-919-2355. Okay? 888-919-2355. And I will zip off this battery backup thing for you. It's not very big, really. I'm trying to think of how big it is. Oh, well. About 2 inches, 3 inches by 4 inches. I keep this one's a 78 or 7.8 amps. I keep a 16 amp one in my car, And it's really not that big, and it is wonderful when your phone's dying or your tablet's dying. You plug this thing in, and you are good to go. Okay, here's an interesting one. Okay, this is about strippers. Yes, how the little children cover their ears. Okay, researchers find men. Well, it says researcher finds men strip for self-esteem boost. I don't know. Why do you strip? I don't know. If you're in the chat room and you strip, or you're a male stripper and you want to call in, I would be interested. I personally have never been a stripper. And it turns out that, in reading the story, it turns out that men don't make very much money stripping. Anyway, a new study from the University of Colorado, Denver, finds that male exotic dancers or strippers remain committed to stripping because it enhances their self-concept. This is really neat. Because stripping is a stigmatizing occupation, meaning that people don't think much of strippers, it has the capacity to negatively affect exotic dancers' self-definitions, the researcher said. I looked into what motivates men to continue dancing and found that stripping led to feelings of mattering, meaning that they felt good, they mattered, mastery, and enhanced self-esteem in American strip clubs. The researcher was a female. Here's an interesting thing. She found that unlike many female strippers who report that it is the money that motivates them to remain involved in stripping, male strippers continue to dance because they experience higher self-esteem and self-confidence. So if you've got the body for it, guys, I don't know, and you're not feeling so good about yourself, find yourself a local ladies' nightclub and get naked, and then call into the show. The article continues, in fact, while the majority of men interviewed said they became strippers for money, few earned more than $100 per shift. I don't know how long a shift is, but I'm guessing it's a few hours. I mean, you can't do it for 8 hours. Substantially less than female dancers in the same club. Instead, the researcher found that men continue to strip because it made them desirable and feel good about themselves. Scholl suggests these gendered differences are due to the fact that men and women ascribe different meanings to the objectification they experience while stripping. Female dancers may be more inclined to define sexual objectification as negative, because as women they experience it more frequently and often in not such a nice way. Males, on the other hand, enjoy being objectified by the audience members, Scholl found. They did not define objectification with disempowerment. Of course, they're males. You know, nothing better than being a male, right? And in our society, nothing better than being a white male, because we're still not as good as we could be. Anyway, is that neat or what? But, you know, not everybody can strip. I don't know if you have to look quite as good as one of those guys on the calendar, what a beefcake or no. What's the name of that calendar for women? Is it Beefcake? No, that's not it. I can't think of it. Maybe someone in the chat room knows. Okay. You folks might have heard of this news story, but I just wanted to bring it up briefly. There was this guy that had a root canal done. And I can identify because 2 weeks ago I had 2 root canals done. But I can tell you, I at no time during the root canal did I experience any pain. I had a great dentist. I didn't experience the injections, nothing. It was wonderful. Anyway, this guy goes in to get a root canal. And after the root canal, they find that he is no longer able to create new long-term memories. Now, this was published in an academic journal called NeuroCase. It is, let me see here. I want to find this. The case revolves around a 38-year-old male from the United Kingdom who went to the dentist for a routine procedure, in this case a root canal, and lost the ability to create new memories. Since the 1-hour root canal treatment, during which he was given a local anesthetic, the man cannot remember anything beyond 90 minutes. It's like, you know, Groundhog Day or 50 First Dates. You know, and I've been thinking about this week. What is the connection? Because, you know, the part of your brain that mediates this, that allows you to create long-term memories, is called the hippocampus, and it's tucked pretty deeply in there. But, you know, the nerves in our face they actually split in half. That's why you can numb half your face. The nerves come from for the lack of better words, it comes like from your ears to the middle of your face and turn around and come back again. So if your dentist puts Novocaine or some other cane on the left side of your face, it doesn't spread to the right side. But something happened here that absolutely wiped out this guy's ability to make new long-term memories. Now he retains his old memories. The article says he is fully aware of his identity and his personality did not change. But every day the man thinks it is the day of his dental appointment. He has to manage his life through an electronic diary and access to prompts. Can you imagine that? Every day you wake up, I mean, it'd be bad enough to wake up and every day is the same day, right? But every day is your root canal? It's like waking up every day and saying, oh, that's right, today's the day I'm going to be executed or something. Poor guy. I doubt there's a fix for that. But if I find updates, I'll certainly keep you updated. Let me remind you that the phone number is 888-919-2355. You mean there's nobody out there that wants a free battery backup for their phones and their tablets and all that stuff? All right. Anyway, 888-919-2355. Let's get back on with the news here. I'm trying to decide if I want to do that. I only have 8 minutes. Shoot. Okay. Let's jump into our topic for this evening, which is interpersonal attraction. You would be surprised at some of this. I mean, it is fascinating stuff. We just finished this chapter in one of my classes, and I was telling my students, I think we're going to cover this on the radio. I think it's cool. First of all, this is really important. We are wired as people. Now, there's always exceptions. Remember that. Some people are very happy being alone, but we're talking about the vast majority of people. The absence of a meaningful relationship generally makes people feel lonely, worthless, hopeless, helpless, powerless, and alienated. We're wired to pair bond. Because if we don't pair bond, we don't make children. If we don't make children, then the species goes away. So that's an important thing to consider. Now, one of the most important determinants of whether we're attracted or not is called it's just proximity. It's called propinquity, and it's due to something called the mere exposure effect, meaning just being close to somebody makes you physically close. Increases the possibility of attraction. In one study they did of next door neighbors, it's kind of like a townhouse row that I'm in. There's like 8 neighbors. Okay, 41% of people said that their next door neighbor they were close friends to. Okay, if someone lived 2 doors down, only 22% considered those people friends, and people that lived at the opposite end of a hall or a townhouse, only 10%. Isn't that amazing? That's the mere exposure effect. You're going to be more exposed to your next door neighbor, and it works here. I mean, I know my one next door neighbor really well. I don't even think I know the name of the person who lives 8 doors down, but I sort of know something about the people in the middle of the block. So that's the mere exposure effect. I think that's really cool. Okay, so similarity is important. We do hear that opposites attract, and sometimes they do, but it doesn't last long. Because just think about it. If you're opposites, there's going to be problems. Let's say you're, kind of the quiet, stay-at-home type, and you meet someone who at first is really exciting. This person wants to go out every weekend and do stuff, but after a while, you're more like, I kind of want to stay home. And I want to go out and raise some hell. So somebody's going to be unhappy. What attracts is similarity. The greater the similarity, the more liking. And this is across, any kind of variable you want to think about. Demographics, how much money you make, attitudes, values, race. I hate to say it, but even how the other person looks. Most couples, if we could have a scale of beauty, so let's say on a scale of 1 to 10, a person's beauty is a 7. Well, they're more likely to be attracted to another person that's a 7. And again, there's always exceptions. I know that. Once in a while, you see a guy that looks like an absolute troll, and he's with a someone that looks like a model. There's always going to be exceptions. Of course, there's exceptions, but we're interested in what works. What works the most. So similarities in interest, similarities in experience, exposure, those are really big deals. Now, for committed relationships, it's really important to choose a very similar partner if you want to end up with this person for a long time. Now, here's something interesting. Perceived similarity is more important than actual similarity. You might just think that your partner feels a certain way about something. And as long as you perceive that similarity, it happens to count. Now, for lower levels of commitment, we can choose dissimilar partners. If you're having a fling, my students talk about friends with benefits. Some of them are pretty open about that. They have roommates, they have friends that the only thing that they do with this person is have sex. There's no romance, there's nothing. In that case, similarity wouldn't be important. Here's a big surprise. We like people who like us. That's called reciprocal liking. For initial attraction, reciprocal liking can overcome some dissimilarities. But I'm telling you, the least similar you are to someone, the less likely you are to have a long-term relationship, and the less likely it is, to be successful. Now, what do you know about a person initially when you first meet them? You might know something that someone else told you about them, but really what you know is what they look like. So at least in the beginning, physical attractiveness does play a role in liking, and that makes sense. I tend to think, and I don't have any evidence for this, but I tend to think that's kind of an age-related thing. I think as we get older, we get smarter, and we know that the cover of a book, isn't going to tell you about what's inside. Now, men are more likely than women to find physical attractiveness important. Women are more likely to look at other variables. But as long as we're talking about attractiveness, here's something we do in society, which to me is kind of interesting. Here's what we find attractive, okay? In a female face, large. If you guys are sitting there with your female partners, take a look at her out of the corner of your eye and see how she does here. High attractiveness ratings are associated with large eyes, small nose, small chin, and prominent cheekbones. And when we talked about this in class, I just Googled randomly models and brought a few models up on the screen, and they had these characteristics. They had large eyes, small nose, small chin, prominent cheekbones. Okay, now let me go here. Let's see. Also, let's see. Now, what do women like? Well, women also like large eyes and prominent cheekbones. They like a large chin, and they like a big smile. Okay, so take a look in the mirror, guys, and see how you're doing. Large eyes, prominent cheekbones, large chin, big smile. Both sexes like people who smile. You will definitely increase, how likable you are if you have a nice smile. A bigger smile is better, but just smile often. And facial attractiveness is perceived pretty similarly across cultures. Another thing is symmetry is preferred. If you were taking a mirror and held it up to your face and looked on one side so that your face was perfectly symmetrical, you may not recognize yourself. But look at the beauty models. Their faces are very, very symmetrical. Okay. For most of us, average face are preferred, not the extremes. And I think what they mean by that is that, if we don't like the real exotic stuff, and again, most of us are kind of average, so we're going to like average. Let's see. So anyway, familiarity is a very crucial variable for interpersonal attraction. It may be the most crucial, and people prefer, faces that resemble their own. All right. Anyway, I do want to take this topic into next week. I want to talk about it some more. We'll get into some more interesting things. But right now we need to take a short break, and then when we come back, we're going to have Mark Schwartz and Webb from Truth Funders join us, and we're going to talk about their show and their project. So get yourself something to eat or drink, go to the bathroom, pet your dog, whatever floats your boat, and I'll be back in a couple minutes. Welcome back, folks. Hope you got something to drink or eat, or went to the bathroom, pet the dog, looked out the window, stretched a little bit. Anyway, right now I'm sitting here looking at my second computer, and I am looking at this wonderful website called truthfunders.com. And it is a fundraising platform for people who are trying to fund a project having to do with the paranormal, because this is hard to do. I'm in the academic world. I can't get anything funded through the academic world. And as a matter of fact, I tripped across it several months ago. It seems like forever, because I wanted to do an ESP project. So I signed up, and I raised enough money to start my project. I got tremendous support from them. They were wonderful. They even write your sort of your sub web page within a page. Anyway, the founders are Mark Schwartz and Webb. And they are our guests tonight, and Art's going to join us in about 15 minutes. But what I'd like to do now is have Mark talk a bit about Truth Funders, what the mission is, what his goals are, and how you can get involved and help. So how you doing, Mark? How is it out there on the other coast?
I'm doing great. Thanks a lot, Eric. Just on something you just said. So, I created Truth Funders. I'm the CEO of the company with my business partner, his name is Todd Lash, and he's done all sorts of incredible other projects that you might have heard or have been sold from one place to another.
Before.
Yeah, he's sort of the private partner. And then Art is actually the host of Truth Funders Radio, and that's on the Inception Radio Network. So Art's fantastic. He comes from this great background of broadcasting, and I'll let him sort of talk about his background when he comes on. But I mean, he has worked on internet radio with some of the internet radio's best, including Dr. Drew, and
cool.
He has a whole list of people. But we're excited.
Your show's on Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Pacific on this network.
Yeah, and okay. It's a blast. Art and I'm sort of the co-host, as part of the creator of Truth Funders. I'm sort of there to give Art a helping hand, but I like to consider him the main host of the show, and we like to bicker with each other on air. He's a great guy. We just have a fun on-air chemistry. So, and he'll be on here in just a few minutes as well, so you can hear us bicker then.
Well, good.
Yeah, so Truth Funders is a lot of fun, and you and I actually met through Truth Funders, and you had your project that you created, and your project is amazing, by the way. ESP plus science equals evidence, and I love talking to you about your project. We've talked a little bit about it on my show, and we can talk about it more here if you like. But when we met through Truth Funders, I think it's just so cool because where else can you create a project, find people who are interested in the same sort of realm of things that you're interested in, as well as help put the word out about your project and kind of create a community. And what I love to see, sort of one of your successes, Eric, is not only the fact that people have donated to your project, but that your show kind of evolved from just planting the seed at Truth Funders on out, and so that's like a really cool success story for us to hear, and for us to be on your show. We're totally honored.
Yeah, that's kind of how I ended up doing a show. What really amazes me is that I thought I was going to have to do. I mean, I'm not artistic, and if you guys go to Truth Funders, look at any project, click on mine. It's the third one on the top row. And the picture you see there, when you click on it, and then all of the text and everything you see, they did. They wrote all that. I mean, I didn't have to do any of that. And, you can, Mark is so easy to get a hold of. They provide. I mean, I guess I'm just trying to get across is that if you want support, you're going to get all that you need and then some. So, you explain to them what you want to do, and then they put it together, and they are clearly artistic, and the write-ups are so professional. I'm getting so used to seeing stuff on the internet with, 'cause I'm a professor. I don't like seeing lots of misspelling, grammatical errors, and all that. This is a very professional-looking site. You might want to explain, Mark, how you ended up with a dragonfly as your, I don't know what you want to call it, your mascot.
As our logo? Sure.
Your logo, yeah.
So, the story behind Truth Funders is that I had this idea where I wanted to create something similar to, a Kickstarter, a crowdfunding site where people who are really interested in the world of the paranormal could go and create a project. Maybe they wanted to research something or create a movie or a documentary. And it could be real life stuff, or it could be fiction, but dealing with the paranormal, or ghost hunters want to save up enough money to rent out a hotel for a night, whatever it might be, in order to do their investigation. But it has, anything that deals with the paranormal. You could go to this website and say, hey, everybody, we're trying to raise this amount of money. This is our project. This is what we're trying to do. And then people could come out and donate to your project. And the cool thing about Truth Funders is it's all for people who are interested in the paranormal. So not only can you look at all the different projects and see what else is out there, if you're into this genre, but then you're more likely to donate to some of this stuff. Because I talked to a lot of people who were creating projects on Kickstarter, and they were getting no donations to their projects. Or Kickstarter or some of these other companies would not want them to create a project on their site.
On Kickstarter, it's getting to where you're a grain of sand on a beach.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so this really narrows that down. And a lot of people that are creating projects on here, it does take a lot of work, but they're finding that the people that do work hard at it actually start to see some results. And we try to help out as best as we can, sharing it with our audience, interviewing people on our radio show about the project, doing little cool community things. Like there's a guy who was creating a movie, and he wanted to touch base with a couple of other people in the genre, some different ufologists, and we were able to get in touch with those ufologists and put the two of them together. So now he's interviewing them for his film, and that's the kind of, I guess, vibe we are trying to bring together. It's just this whole community of projects. Maybe it's people you're trying to find. Maybe it's money you're trying to raise. We're just trying to make that happen in one place.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and it's really fun. And boy, has this world really opened itself up. There's a lot happening right now in the world of technology, and the world of the paranormal. And there's certain places that I'm starting to see, being owner of this company, that a lot of places are being bought up. So you have something like Paranormal Date, for instance, which is out there, which is George Norrie's project that he's created, which is a dating site specifically for people who are into the paranormal. There's all these genre sites that are starting to pop up because there is such a big market for this. And because of that, a lot of these technologies are starting to be bought up or purchased by bigger names and bigger people. And so it's really neat to be on the forefront of that. And we've started to get some offers from people. I don't know that we're going to sell anything necessarily, but definitely partner up with a couple of big names that's in our future here. So yeah, it's a really, really exciting place to be.
And you've had folks, Spaceboy, who had a music project. He actually exceeded his funding goal, right? And it didn't take him that long.
Yeah, and that's a prime example of somebody who has a he had an audience. Now, it wasn't a huge audience, but he did have a couple hundred people following him. He had a fan base of people that loved his music. And so once he came to us and said, hey, I have this idea. I'm going to make a song. It's a Truth Funders anthem. You guys can use this song however you see fit. If you want to use it in your radio show, if you want to use it, however you want to use it, go for it. And what I'll do is I will sell the song to the public, try to raise some money, and it'll be like a $5 donation. And so he did that. So people could donate $5 and get the song, or they could donate $10 and get a full album, or they could donate $25 and get 5 of his albums. And so he wound up, his goal was to raise $500, and he went ahead and did that and reached out to his audience and sent them messages on Facebook and Twitter and created an email list and sent stuff out to them. And we helped him along the way, but he reached his goal and he was able to succeed. And I mean, that's great. That's a wonderful success.
And I think
case for us.
That's the one thing that the researcher, you do have to do. I don't have a big audience. I'm a quiet guy. So what I did was I was constantly posting my my Truth Funders project, not to the point that I was being a pain, but I was putting it somewhere every day, Twitter, Facebook, just anywhere, with the link and a brief explanation. And I was surprised. I mean, it did really well. We got enough funding to start the project, and we've already done a trial run with the Zener cards with some volunteer psych students. So the students love being in the project. And there's another full-time psychologist there who teaches, and I really think she didn't think she was going to like it very much, but she really got into it. So now she's involved too. So I mean, it works. It works very well.
It's really, really cool. So what do you think? What are your thoughts? I mean, you've sort of gone through the experience of it. You're still going through it because it can take a while for all the donations to come in and to get what you need in order for it to work. But, have you sent out, I know you had some really cool offers as well. I think it was $25 donation to your project, which was the ESP project, ESP plus science equals evidence.
Right.
And did you send out the Zener cards? Were you able to?
So far, everyone that has donated has declined their price.
Oh, that's so cool.
The nice thing is they felt like it was taking money away from the project.
Yeah, and it is.
But I'm very happy to do it. I don't mind it at all.
It's cool. It's going to a great cause.
I think we need a platform like this because, academia has given up. But, what if a Truth Funders project really got something going? What if we got some real evidence-based paranormal psychology going? Project. I think that somebody at some school would run with it, and so it may be that your project and your show is what's going to get it started. Now it is like pushing a rock uphill. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But it's worth it. I mean,
and it all depends too. I mean, there might be someone who creates a project. Anyone in the world can create it. So if you are Joe Nobody, but you have a great idea, you can go there and you can write to us and you can create a project yourself. But then there's people that are coming around that are going to be having projects on there, like Heidi Hollis. We have some big names up on Truth Funders, and we're getting more. There's a lot more that are coming in. So all it takes is for one, project to really go hot and really go viral, and then people are paying attention to it. People are donating to it, and then all these other people out there that have projects on Truth Funders, their projects will be noticed. So it's a matter of getting it out there, marketing it, letting people know that Truth Funders exists. And as time is going on, that's happening more and more. And I think we're having some really cool partnerships. IRN is a wonderful platform. But we have some other partnerships that we're starting to build and work on right now. So I think that there is going to be a significant shift very shortly here.
So your show and the website and other things you're doing, it sounds to me like you're trying to get some synergy going. At some point, it would really take off. You would get, I'm trying to think of the term. I can't think of it. It's when you get to the right amount of mass and then something happens.
Critical mass. Yeah.
Yes, you're trying to get to your critical mass. So you have the show. How is the show going?
Oh, the show's a blast, and I think Art will be calling in, or we'll be reaching out to him anytime soon or coming up, and you'll see. Him and I, we go back a few years. I met Art via the internet. He was producing a show. It was a talk show and also a music station. He had two different stations he was working on. And I reached out to him just because I really liked the music on this particular station. And so we struck up a dialogue. It wound up turning into this really great partnership. He was in LA. I'm based in Northern California, where we were working on a potential show, TV show that we were working on for a little while together. And then once Truth Funders came about and I started working on this, I said, it would be great to have a radio show. And not only that, to work with Art. He has a great voice. His voice is just, he has a voice for radio, that's for sure. And so, we work together. We were a lot like the same person, but different people at the same time. I can't quite explain it. We talk over each other like an old married couple, and it's a really fun show. We look at the deep, dark things at life. We like to talk about paranormal technology, different platforms like Truth Funders that are out there. We like to talk to people who have experiences and who have had who are having experiences and who have had experiences, because we find that really intriguing. And we also take things lightly. So we're a little bit on the lighter side of things, I think, but we take everything we hear very seriously.
I think that for people that are thinking about this, that are interested in their personality analysis, thinking, well, I don't have an idea. Well, you know what? You have an idea. One of the important things in science is replication. Someone does a study and they get a good result. Then someone else does basically the same study and we get a good result. And it's kind of like, the project itself, the variable or whatever, it gains more credence. I mean, you can do something that's already been done. Go online, look at some small experiments and say, I want to replicate this one. And then, give that information to market Truth Funders. You do not have to have an original idea. When I'm writing a paper and I need a reference for something, I might find 100 references. I mean, the same thing has been researched 100 times. But the reason we find that valuable is then we can do meta research. Let's say that someone is studying a particular thing, and there's been 50 research projects done. Well, then I can do what's called meta research. I can look at all 50 projects, and I can say, okay, well, they all had a variety of outcomes, but every single one of them had these two outcomes. Well, those must be important outcomes. That's why it's important to replicate. So you don't have to have a brand new idea. Find a psychology experiment or something that that floats your boat, and do it again, because it needs to be done again. And then if you want to publish it or you want to get it in front of academics, then work through Mark and get back to me, and I can help you with that. I hope that's helpful.
I think that's great. I think that's extremely helpful. And it's so cool to hear you give such a psychological approach to this. I mean, you are on a paranormal radio network, and you are looking things through a skeptics and scientific, perspective, but you're open-minded to the possibilities
Yes.
of the strangeness that's out there. And I think that's something that's really great about your show and why people, listen. I heard you as a guest on, I think it was Bill and Nancy Burns' show
Yes.
a little while back. That was a great interview as well. You guys talked about quite a lot.
I actually called and asked to be a guest on their show, and I was very surprised when they said yes.
Yeah, it was a great show, and they're incredible, huh?
Bill got so wound up. I almost felt like he was in the room. I thought his head was going to explode. And the guy seems to know a little bit about everything. He's like an autodidact. He's sort of a modern day Renaissance man. He's really bright. And Nancy's one of the reasons I like talking to Nancy is that nothing gets by her.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, they're two of the sharpest people in the paranormal.
And you're not going
really
to BS so. Nancy. You're not going to BS Nancy
not
for a moment. Her BS meter is really sensitive.
Her and I actually, when she was a guest on the show, on Truth Funders, we ended the show, and her and I wound up talking for another 2 hours after the show because there was just much to talk about. Yeah. So we were on a roll. I know I've had the same, I've talked with you about a lot of things too. One thing we like to do on Truth Funders is be really transparent. This is a live radio show and a live radio program, and a lot of the people that listen to Inception Radio Network, they're here to learn. They really love learning about the guests, about topics, and one thing that happens when you listen to so much paranormal radio, as I do, and I think you do as well, because you're a big fan, is that you start to know the personalities, and you start to almost develop a friendship with them, even though you haven't met them or talked to them. And so it's really exciting. What we love to do on Truth Funders is kind of talk about the dynamic and the friendships that we have with different show hosts, and give people sort of a peek behind the curtain, because I think a lot of people are interested in that personal aspect as well.
I agree.
As the surface and the information that's being given. We want to know more about the insides and the secrets of our favorite radio show hosts and hear how they're all related or interrelated. So without the drama, we don't have to give a lot of drama on air, but I think that's something that we like, and you and I connected on that, talking about old Art Bell shows and different shows that we listen to. I know that's one of the things that you and I connected on really early in the game about.
I agree, and you're a very nice guy and so easy to communicate with. Are those? Is that just your personality? Did you pick some of that up in previous work you did?
As far as my award-winning personality,
that's a very pleasant person. It's a likable person. Remember, you're talking to a psychologist.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you could see through me. You could probably, well, you can't read my thoughts. You're trying to prove that can be done, but yeah, I don't know. I've always been this way. As far as I know, trying to please. That's something
there is that. Nice people do have a tendency to want other people to be happy too.
Yeah, and I think that.
Oh, there's always a danger of becoming a doormat if you're not careful.
Oh, without a doubt. And I think I've lived through my doormat part of my life where, I definitely will stand up for myself and say things if I feel like, anything's happening or if I'm being attacked or if something needs to get done. You can't be the CEO of a company and not have that spine. I think that's really one of the important traits that you have to have. But, at the same time, when you're dealing with people donating money anywhere, when you're dealing with people who have their great ideas for a project and they're putting themselves out on the line trying to raise awareness for their project or themselves, and they're brave enough to take their project and bring it to you and put it on your website so you can help them. I mean, that says a lot. And how the site does, as far as, the best thing that I can do is work with people and they have a really great time and want to create another project or say good things to their friends, and their friends want to create projects on the site, because that spreads, and that tenfold. The more people say good things about you, that can only help the business. If you're a bad person, if you're trying to con people, if you're trying to just get people's money and exploit things, then that's horrible. And I wouldn't want to trust anybody like that. So, everything that we do, we try to be as straightforward and honest. That's one of the reasons why we talk about the shows and the stuff and lifting the curtain and behind the scenes on our show. It's because we don't play those games. We just want to be a successful company. We want our company to be like the Apple of the paranormal world in some ways, where it's this community, and people, different radio shows come and check our website to see what the latest project is so they can talk about it on their show. Or they can come to our website and say, oh, that sounds really cool. I would love to get that person as a guest on my show.
Oh, I like that idea of your site as show material. We need to take our second break. And once again, give the folks a chance to get something to eat or drink or pet. I keep saying pet the dog because mine's lying asleep beside me here. And we'll be back in a couple minutes with Mark again, and maybe Art. Hopefully, it's still early out there on the West Coast. So see you folks in a couple minutes. And we're back, folks. At the end of, right before the break, I say poof, because I want you to imagine me dissolving into an explosion of like baby powder, and then I reconstitute after the break. So just in case you're saying, what the hell did that guy say right before he went off the air? It's poof, P-O-O-F. Anyway, we are back, and now not only do we have Mark Schwartz.
Hello.
We have Art Webb, and Art, introduce yourself and your connection to Truth Funders.
Well, my name is Arthur Hubert Webb II. I was born in Riverside, California on May 26, 1985. I'm not going to go into all that, but I co-host the Truth Funders radio show live on the Inception Radio Network with Mark Schwartz every week. And Mark came to me when he first launched Truth Funders and said, hey, I got this idea. I want to do a weekly radio show to help kind of build Truth Funders out and to give it like a weekly destination for people to check out what's going on. And I said, that's a great idea. And Mark knew me from having spent many years in talk radio. And he said, I would love for you to host the show with me. And I said, an opportunity to work with the great Mark Schwartz on a weekly basis. Are you kidding me? Sign me up. And here I am.
Now, did you have other background in this stuff or radio?
Yes, my primary everything I've ever done has been in talk radio, predominantly for the last 12 years.
Neat.
Yeah, I've done a lot of things. I have.
You can say it, Art. You can say name drop.
Well,
it's okay.
Okay.
No, name drop. I like name dropping. Name drop.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, I've been actively involved in internet radio, as a matter of fact, since I think 2006 or 2007 was when I started playing around with it. So pretty early on, and I've been kind of there along the way, every step in the process of internet radio becoming the new normal. No pun intended. I'll get to that in a second. Of what what broadcasting is and how people are consuming.
Art, I just read a statistic that 30 million people listen to the radio online, and that's 10% of the population. I mean, that's big.
That's big, yes, and it will only exponentially continue to grow, if only because of the fact that terrestrial broadcast radio and the programming involved on it has essentially shot itself in the foot and killed itself by way of just sucking everything fun, interesting, and creative out of it in favor of nickel and diming the business. And it's sad and unfortunate because I come from terrestrial broadcast radio as my primary background, and I started, in San Francisco was where I got my first job, but I worked on the Tom Leykis show for many years, which was a nationally syndicated talk radio show a la, kind of like Howard Stern. It was on the same station as Howard Stern aired on. And I was, actively doing that as my career I worked on that show for many years and made good money doing it. And then, unfortunately, they decided that the running talk radio stations cost too much. Why pay salaries to 4 essentially morning shows on the air all day long when you can just play music and it's a hell of a lot cheaper. And and that's what's happening, and that is why things like IRN have become so much more predominant in the way people consume, talk radio, because talk radio is an important element of entertainment, and it's honestly the best because it is the most intimate and allows like connection to your customers, your listeners, your fans, in such a way that you just can't accomplish anywhere else. I mean, you cannot establish that kind of close relationship. And that's what attracts me to it.
And
it's the only kind of radio I listen to was talk radio. That's it. I don't watch TV. I listen to it. And my girlfriend who loves this too. She got turned onto it.
So anyway,
hold
on, Mark.
I'll
finish this real quick. Mark,
sure.
This is, by the way, if anybody ever listens to Truth Thunder, yes,
this
Truth
is us
Thunder's
bickering
radio
right here.
is essentially this, where I say, Mark, hold on, let me finish my thought about 600 times during the show, and then in between those moments is when we fill in like actual interesting content. But usually it's just me saying, hold on, Mark, let me finish my thought. I just want to say that I spent a lot of time on the air as well. I was the DJ on rock stations, and to this day I continue to work in internet radio as my primary career, most recently now for Apple Music and their whole new thing. So that's how I make a lot of my time spent other than doing this Truth Thunder.
So radio is your career?
Yes, radio has been my career since the day I turned 18 years old. Well, really, radio has been my career since I was in 3rd grade, and I decided that was what I wanted to do for a living.
I think that is so cool.
The moment
I used to practice my radio voice like this when I was a kid. No, I'm just kidding. I never did that. No, but
you did, you liar! You're such a liar. I know you sounded exactly like that too.
Well,
you needed that real deep voice, right? Like this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. I talk about this a lot. The big radio stations, the big radio companies, the big global powers. There's like 3 of them, maybe 3 or 5 of them. I think there's
not anymore. You know what? As a matter of fact, every major radio broadcast entity, Cumulus Radio, Clear Channel Radio, now iHeartMedia, CBS Radio, those are the main 3. They are all hemorrhaging money. None of them have been in the black since, I think, 2005 or 6.
Because this is what they do. They go in, they hack away all the personality. So, you used to drive to town and get that intimate, wonderful, oh, yes, it's good to hear, like, I've never been to this town before, and I'm hearing this DJ, and he's playing this new music, and he's talking about new things, and it's really cool. They've taken all that away. They've wiped it out, and what they've done is they put up the Ryan Seacrests, and they say, oh, Ryan Seacrest will be great for every single station from New York to California. Let's go ahead and put him in the 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock time slot. That way we only have to play one person instead of hundreds of people, and we can just record him so he doesn't even have to be live, and we can just kind of put him here and there and cookie cut it. And while they're doing this, they're destroying everything that people listen to the radio for. And they're also, the only thing that they have on these days, because of what happened back in the 90s, is right-wing talk radio. And it's like, it's this conservative stuff with, Rush
Limbaugh. Every radio station is a robot station these days.
Yeah, it's the same people you hear: Mark Levin, Randy Savage, Sean Hannity, and Rush Limbaugh. And you hear those guys, boom, 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 boom. And it's the same stuff. And you know what? People are getting tired of hearing these guys. And they've been on for like 15 years, and they're getting too old. Like, they're just, we've seen it. We've lived through a lot of the stuff they said was going to happen that didn't happen, yada, yada, all the, and there's only so much people can take. The real
sad thing about it is, honestly, the generation now that is the up-and-comings, the ones that are primarily listening to IRN, they're never going to understand that back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, even for a minute in the early 2000s when I first started, I got just a taste of this. Radio used to be a destination. You used to go to the station, and it was a place. It was a whole environment that you lived within, and that was, the creativity was just unstoppable, and it's just a sad, depressing story that I don't want to get into.
Well, you're right about the age brackets, because my students, especially my 18 to 25s, they do not listen to terrestrial radio. They don't have a typical radio, that you plug into the wall. If it doesn't come through their tablet, their phone, or their notebook, they don't listen. But, what I do see is, the 17, 18-year-olds, they're listening to music. But as the age goes up, they talk more about, talk radio. And a lot of I'm surprised at the number of my students who listen to the show because, I have a great 5 weeks ahead of me. For the next 5 weeks, I teach 2.5 hours a week. I'm finished my big classes for the summer. But Tuesday night at the beginning of Social Psych, some of the students will bring up the show.
That's awesome. And that is really cool. And the other thing, too, is that the problem with radio as an entity and what it used to be in these broadcasting corporations, what they had, is that they didn't develop with the technology as it progressed. And just like anything else, when the Rolling Stones put out a vinyl record in the 1960s, when 8 tracks came out, there was no question that you would be able to get the Rolling Stones on 8-track, and then sequentially
I had one of those
into tapes, into CDs, into MP3s. The delivery system may change, but the content will always stay the same, and that's the problem that radio broadcast, as it was existing, ran into, is that they did not develop with the times, and they were so married to this technology of a giant piece of metal on a mountain somewhere, broadcasting, wirelessly, that they refused to adopt the internet as something that could deliver their content to the people. And because they did that, they really missed the boat, just like Blockbuster did with Netflix. We've seen this story time and time again. Radio is a billion-dollar industry, so it's taking a little bit more time to die off. But we are there at this point, honestly.
They're basically selling it off for parts. These stations, they went in, they bought all these stations, they bankrupted these stations, then they sell them for pieces, and they dismantle them, and they close them, and then they streamline them.
I do wonder one thing, though. I'm not a fan of pure podcasts. I like live radio. Mm-hmm. Now, I like the idea that if I miss a show, I can go listen to the archive, but I mean, what's the balance going to be? Do these folks do podcasts only because they're kind of shy about being live, or
no, they do podcasting.
Editing?
They do podcasting because live broadcasting, you cannot stop down and fix things and make it sound perfect, and you can
that makes it exciting.
Podcasting. Yes, it does, and also with live broadcasts like what we're doing now, we can interact with our listeners in real time, and that is the thing that has always turned me off about podcasting, is that there is that sense of connection and intimacy with the host as you're listening to him in that moment. It is completely just removed from the entire equation, and therefore it just seems much less special to me in that way, because there is that room for spontaneity is completely disintegrated. You can't do that, and that's what made Howard Stern and people like that so great. Was you'll never get that in podcasting, and podcasting will never be a major medium that makes it money.
Because I mean, the whole time that we're doing the show, my eyes are glued to the chat room. I mean, right. I love that interaction. Sky's in there, Analog Hole's in there. We got some regulars. So getting back to Truth Funders, I would assume that you and Mark are kind of on the same page. If you had to guess, where do you think it'll be in a few years, 2 or 3 years?
Well, so we were working on some really cool apps, some behind-the-scenes stuff that was really neat. That stuff kind of went on hold for a little bit, and it's not that we don't have it ready. We do have it. We could release it, and some of these things that we were working on was live streams where people could skywatch, like weather cams, like the Arizona news weather cam, and we could pull it in and stream it, so you could come to Truth Funders and watch streams in different states and just stare at the sky.
Live cams.
Yeah, just live cams anytime you want. So that way, if you wanted to UFO watch, you could do it, and you could potentially record some of the stuff from your desktop. So that was one thing.
Could that be like a SETI project if lots of people bought inexpensive IP cams and pointed them straight up and let them all go
definitely
to the same
could
place?
Be. Yeah,
and could that be a project for somebody?
That could totally be a project, without a doubt. To interconnect
a network of sky pointing webcams.
Yeah, that would be a fantastic one. I think a lot of people would donate to that and think that it was super cool. I mean, that's the kind of project that we would love to fund. There is a guy that is doing a project where he is, and we've been in touch a little bit here and there. He actually created an observatory and is filming the moon without using NASA's footage. And what he was saying was that when he was he was watching NASA footage of the moon, and right when something strange started to happen, it cut away and went to a different camera angle. And he was sick of watching this and seeing this where it would always cut away if he was trying to stare at something. So what he did, he was independently wealthy, and he raised some money and created an organization, a non-profit, and he created this observatory with a camera, and he is creating a feed to the moon, which is non-interrupted. It's just a stream. So he might be creating a project on Truth Funders soon. But something like that, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that we love and that we want people to create on here, and we will help to broadcast it and get it to the right places and push it to the right people. I mean, this is what we get really excited about. So yeah, there's projects like that. But then where do we see ourselves? Like I said, we're partnering up with some big people, or potentially partnering, and we've had a couple of offers come our way, and right now I'm just trying to move things around, see what would be the best for the company, and for the morale of the company, for how people view the company, and what will get it the best exposure. So
I think Mark, do you mind if I chime in with something?
Please, go ahead.
By the way, if you guys are hearing anything other than my voice coming from my line, it's because I'm in the middle of a fucking monsoon.
You're in the middle of a what?
And rain that is upside. It's a monsoon. I'm in a monsoon. I'm in an actual monsoon. Like there's rain coming down. Yeah, it's great, but it's loud.
You guys need it.
I apologize for coming across. What I was going to say though is, I think the idea with Truth Funders right now, honestly, and looking at it in 2 or 3 years ahead, there's obvious benchmarks and goals that we would like to hit in terms of user exposure and the amount of people coming to visit Truth Funders and interacting with it on a daily basis. But I think really it's at this point much more about keeping an open mind and letting it organically grow and build into whatever it's going to become, and allowing it, not micromanaging what Truth Funders is, and allowing Truth Funders to decide for itself what it's going to be, because just like anything else, we're working with the universe, and I think that we should let the universe put in their 50% of it too. So we should keep an open mind as well.
Yeah, I think that's really well said, Art. It will be whatever people make of it. If people decide they hate it and it's not working for them, then that's one thing. We've had people inquire. There's been a few people in the past who have said, "Oh,
inquire?
well, maybe."
Inquire. I was thinking of the music. Okay.
Yeah,
acapella.
We had there was on what is it, the Art Bell chat page, oh gosh,
Belgab.
Yeah, Belgab, thank you. So on Belgab, there was actually someone posted one of our projects and said, "Oh, this is really cool. Is this project actually going to happen? Does anybody know about this Truth Funder stuff?" And then someone, there are a couple of posts like, "Oh yeah, they're a new company." And then someone wrote underneath that, I think it was, "Oh, they're just trying to, make money, trying to make as much money as they can, probably." And then someone else wrote something under there like, "No, they're actually really cool. I've listened to their show." I mean, there's all this stuff. But to people thinking, "Oh, they're trying to make all the money they can," to be quite honest, we are business. So yes, we do want to make money, because if we make money, we're able to have more advertising and make it bigger and more robust, and we're able to get your project out and do stuff. But how much money? I mean, we're not taking anything. If people want to have a project and they want to put it up, we take 4% of that. And for what we do and how we help,
tiny.
It is tiny. I'm telling you, we've spent a lot more money than we made so far.
Oh, I'm sure.
But I think that will change. I think that will change over the years as this continues to grow and evolve. And I think that's another thing is what we need is time. It's still a new platform. And that's why it's so cool to jump on board now, is because you could be one of those projects that is there and ready to go when that big one hits. And suddenly, boom, there's tons of people on the site because it's just a matter of time.
You know, somewhere in your area, there's a $45 million mansion on the market. Maybe that'll be yours in 2 years.
Hey, I will take it.
It has 123 rooms. Every time I hear about these places, I always wonder, how do you keep it clean? But I'm way off topic. I'm sorry. Go ahead, guys.
No, you gotta wonder how they keep those things clean. A lot of maids, I suppose. But yeah, you know, the future for this thing is, it's like the reason why we do it is to help the universe. I really feel that. And it was like you said earlier, like, you seem like a nice person. You really seem like a naturally nice person. And that's how I hope people view Truth Funders. Like, it's a nice site. It's really trying to help people, because we are. That's what we're trying to do. If we give it to the universe, hope it comes back.
That reminds me of something you said when you were first, building the idea for Truth Funders, and ultimately what it would become, is that the one thing you really didn't want Truth Funders to be was that kind of stigma that's attached with the paranormal genre and realm that is like, it's very dark and it's very, and it's not very accessible to the common person. You feel as though you're being engaged with or involved with something that is not for you. It's a lot of skulls and just a weird imagery, and you wanted to keep it much more calm and like friendly to the users, friendly to people that aren't necessarily involved with the paranormal community on a day-to-day basis. You wanted them to feel comfortable engaging.
Well, absolutely. That's a really great point, Art. I mean, when you're creating a site for so long, when you're dealing with anything that's beyond the norm, and you're dealing with aliens and UFOs, and you're dealing with ghosts, and you're dealing with psychic phenomenon, this imagery that you have is black. It's purple. It's these dark colors, and it's strange alien stuff, and it's stars, and it's all of that. No one in a long time has approached it from this professional point of view that makes it okay for people to like it. If I'm not into the paranormal and suddenly I come across this site, I'm not going to run away screaming saying, "Oh, what did I just see? That was creepy." No, it's professional.
Witchcraft.
Right, because we're trying to make it that way, and make it so it's okay to talk about these things. Make it so that it's okay to donate, and not scare people away with skull and bones images. We really want this to be a thing that people say, okay, yeah, this is a professional site. People, I can put my thing up there, my project, and people will take it seriously. And
I think people have to realize that the notion behind crowdfunding is that you're not asking for $100. I mean, 1,000 people donate $1 or $2, then a project gets funded. There's nothing wrong with donating $1. You might have $1.50 right now sitting in your PayPal balance. Well, pick a project and send the buck.
Yeah, and you get stuff for that buck. You get stuff for that $5. And I spend $5, getting my coffee at my Starbucks, which I hate to admit, but I get a medium latte, right? It's a daily thing that I get, and it winds up being like $3.75, $4.25 with tax. That's $5 to a project that could help somebody out and help to answer some of the mysteries of life that we're trying to figure out as a group.
And to me, it's like, if I can donate that little to somebody's dream and in some small way contribute to something that somebody is very passionate about and wants to be spending their own personal time working on, that's a rewarding feeling for me, ultimately. Like, I did something good with that $1 as opposed to like giving it to my cat and letting rip it up, which did happen yesterday. Literally, my cat ripped up $1. I could have used that $1 to donate. He stole it, and he likes to rip things up, so it's the way it works. But that's... that $1 going to somebody's passion project, to me, like, feeling like I did something with that money that went towards somebody else's like pursuit of happiness, that's a good thing too. And if it's $1, that's what it comes down to. Do it. You'll feel better with yourself at the end of the day.
It's good karma. I mean, it's good karma any way you dice it. So, And I think the one thing that we have to wonder about is some people like to remain anonymous. I think some people are so scared that, oh, well, if I call the radio show, they'll know who I am, they, quote unquote. And who's they? Some people say it's the government. Some people, I don't want people to know that I'm researching the stuff or that I'm interested in it, or and they're worried about it. But you know what? People are not following our site. We're not giving any information out. It's completely anonymous donation from our end.
So you guys don't share your customer list. You don't sell it. It stays in house.
No way.
Okay.
Yeah, all that stuff is. I mean, you need a name in order to take a Visa card. Someone's right. Donating $5 to a project, and so your name is on that. Sure,
well,
but we're not giving that out.
We are out of time. The fastest 90 minutes. My gosh. Did you guys want to close up and just tell people your site, and we got to go?
Sure. Go to
I've got nothing. Mark, take it all. Yeah. Thank you for having me. That's all I got.
Yeah, thanks, Art. Go to www.truthfunders.com right now. At the very front of the page, if you scroll down, you will see Professor Erick's project, and it's right there. It's right on the front page. And I say thank you so much for having us on the show, Erick. And on top of that, donate to Erick's project, because he's making progress. People are donating. Like we said, donate $1, donate $5. He will share the results with you, and you will hear the answers if we can raise that money for him. And I'm sure he'll share them with you on his show.
That sounds great. Well, thank you, folks. This has been our 7th edition of the show. I look forward to seeing everyone next week. Have a good week.
Erick, can I add one more thing? May I add one more thing? Truth Funders Radio live on IRN every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Tune in. Mark and I, we like to have a nice time. We like to talk to guests like Erick, but I do encourage everybody to tune in and listen to our nonsense, because we try to have fun with it and be informative at the same time. So Truth Funders Radio, IRN, Wednesdays, p.m. Eastern, or Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern.
And we will be talking this week to people, a certain ghost hunter who visits the other side in order to relay psychic information. So it's going to be a really, really cool show this week.
It sounds good, and I'll certainly be listening. And we'll see everyone next week. And as I say, every while, because it makes your brain happy. Take care, folks. Goodbye. Poof.
Bye!